Are you ready for some good news? Jesus has been crucified. He will never be beaten again. No need for any sacrifice remains. It is finished. Here's today's text from Numbers. It's chapter 20. And Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock with his staff twice. And water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank and their livestock. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not believe in me to uphold me as holy in the eyes of the people of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. There's a spiritual picture painted in the disturbing story of Moses being banished from the promised land. As we saw previously in the book of Exodus, when the people thirst in the wilderness, the Lord tells Moses to strike the rock and water comes gushing forth. But later, in a similar scene in the book of Numbers, the Lord tells Moses to speak to the rock. But instead, Moses strikes the rock with his staff as before. Water comes forth, but the Lord rebukes Moses for his disobedience and announces that Moses will not be permitted to enter the promised land because of his sin. It seems such a harsh judgment for a seemingly small sin. What's it all about? It depends on this. Paul makes it clear that the rock was a picture of Christ and the water was a symbol of living water. That's in 1 Corinthians 10. The first time, Moses was supposed to strike the rock, but the rock wasn't supposed to be struck twice. You look more closely at this with me and you see what happened in the desert that first time. Exodus 17 tells us the people quarreled with Moses and said, give us water to drink. And Tim Keller has keenly pointed out that the Hebrew word for quarrel can mean a legal accusation. They were accusing Moses of bringing them out to die. It was a manslaughter charge. The text mentions that the elders joined in the assembly. They were like the court justices. It was a trial. Any fair reading of the story would render the same verdict. The people should have been judged more than Moses. So we watch the trial unfold. The staff in Moses' hand is a symbol of judgment. The Lord gives the verdict. He will not strike the people. God will not strike Moses. Instead, the Lord commands, strike the rock. So the judgment fell on the rock. So the next time the people thirsted, God said to speak to the rock rather than strike, because no more judgment was needed. 1,500 years later, the true rock, Jesus Christ, suffered judgment he didn't deserve, and from his perfect sacrifice we have received living water. He'll never be beaten again. The body of Christ need not be beaten. You need make no sacrifice. Christ is risen. The price has been paid. All you need to do is speak to the rock. And that's the gospel. Well, it's a fascinating story, and you can get the whole version of the radio broadcast for free, along with other resources about the grace of God at sharingthelight.org.